This morning, as the second part of a short series on stewardship, I want to share them with you. Number one is the principle of ownership. Paul understood this. Whenever you read Paul talking about stewardship, this is underlining all that he says. Jesus understood this. Whenever you heard Jesus talking about our relationship with material things, this was underlying everything that he said. This is a basic foundation, a basic truth that if any one of us are ever going to reach the place that we're really like Jesus in how we live, it has to be built upon this foundation. It is the principle of ownership. David expressed it in the Psalms. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. You think you own the things that you have, but you don't. You just have use of it for a little while. God owns it all. It's the principle of ownership. Any of us who start down the journey to be good Christians, to live as Christ, to have Him as Lord of our lives, must come to the point and understand this very simple basic principle. Most everything in the Christian life is built upon this, not just the idea of stewardship or giving. Everything in our Christian life is built upon this premise. God is the owner of all things. We are stewards, managers. We simply manage the things that we have for a period of time. Some of you may have done this, and that is to go back home to where you grew up. It's amazing when you go back home and see the house where you grew up. It's not as big as you remember it. You know how big everything seemed, but then you remember it from what it was like when you were little. I used to think my backyard on Elcrest Street in Jackson was huge. I went back and saw it a few years ago, and it's not. The backyard I have now is bigger. I thought it was huge, but it's not. We drove out to the old neighborhood back in March when my father died. It was really kind of sad because the house that I grew up in has been abandoned and neglected, and it is collapsing. It's just rotted in, or termites have eaten it up. It's just collapsing. The old neighborhood we played in, it's just sad the way that it looks. And that's because the current stewards aren't managing it very well. That's all you are of your property in your house. You're just the current steward. You're the current manager of it. Because one day somebody else is going to manage it. Somebody else is going to have it. And unless you built the house yourself, somebody else had it before you. There are places in the world where homes are hundreds of years old. There are places in Paris where there are apartments that are 200 years old. And people get on waiting lists for the opportunity to rent them because of their location and because of the way they were built and their charm. 200 years old. Nobody owns something like that. You just manage it. You just have it for a little while. It's the principle of ownership. So when Paul began appealing to the church at Corinth, as he appealed to all the other churches that he had ministered to, he was appealing to them as managers of their resources, managers of the things God had given them. When I appeal to you on the subject of giving of your time, your talents, giving of your money, I'm really appealing to you on the basis of you're the manager of what God owns. You're the manager of it. You're the steward. And you have a responsibility.